today's episode of Mwah TV, I learned the 4 tips for crafting great speeches and presentations. I chat with Simon Raybould, aka the Presentation Genius, to find out how you can go about making memorable speeches in the right way with a logical, scientific approach. This is going to be useful if you're currently looking to guest more on podcasts or maybe other people's vlogs or live shows, and of course it's extremely helpful when you show up in person on a stage, not during lockdown. Hey, it's Laura here and this is Mwah TV. Before we get into my chat today with Simon, I would love it if you take a moment to subscribe. You can do that right here, right now. Mwah TV is the place to subscribe to if you're looking to get lots of different tips, inspiration and pointers on how you can really make the visuals in your business and ultimately your overall brand sing. If you've always wondered how you show up as a memorable guest speaker in the right way, then I promise you that by the end of this episode, you're going to have a lot more insight on how you can use this tactic to enhance your brand and ultimately generate great business. Now, this episode looks a little bit different, and it's my way of introducing this as a brand new segment here on Mwah TV. I'm adding this into the mix to try and reflect all of the fantastic learning and joy I get from working with all of my beautiful clients. I really have had some fantastic life advice, business advice, and it's truly one of those extra joys that I had never really thought about when I became a professional photographer 10 years ago now. Learning through conversation is such a powerful tool for me, and I would absolutely love it if you join in the conversation too. You can do that at any point in this episode in the comments below. If you're playing this back sometime in the future, you need to know that that was just as the COVID-19 crisis was getting serious. We had just gone into lockdown here in the UK, and we discussed that quite a lot in this conversation. So welcome to Mwah TV. This is a little bit different, as I've just said to you in my introduction today. And today it's less about me and it's more about talking with an expert. So let me welcome our guest expert today, Simon Raybould.
Hello, I'm really nervous of the word expert.
Oh, you are an expert. Shush, man. I say on my show, who is an expert? So today, if you want to make it just today, that's you.
Okay. Suck it up and be the expert, Simon. Suck it up and be an expert.
So do you want to give everyone a little bit of an introduction as to where your area of expertise and genius is?
Okay. I'm a presentations trainer. What I do is help people make better presentations because the research is very clear. Most presentations are at best a waste of time. At worst, they actually suck the life out of you and make you want to die and kill the presenter and things. And don't get anything done.
Yes.
We actually, seriously, we talk here in the team, we talk about something called the sniper slide. The sniper slide is the slide in the presentation at which Simon wishes he had a sniper rifle to just...
Little bit of a rifle from the back row. Love it.
Yeah, I can't believe I've just confessed that on YouTube. So the conversation is going to go downhill from now on. Just leave now, folks.
Was that your metaphorical sniper slide?
That was my metaphorical slide. I was like, yeah. So that's what I do. I help people make presentations that suck a lot less. I started out life as a research scientist and then got more and more interested in the communication of science and then ended up just teaching people the communication rather than the science.
Oh, interesting. So let's jump in. I want to know some value straight away. I hate it when you watch these expert shows and the one little nugget or gem is saved till right to the end. So we've kind of flipped that on its head today on this episode. And I want you to start by sharing your 4 best tips for crafting great speeches and presentations then.
Okay, the first one is the one that everyone's always going to hate because you say start with the right mindset and that hacks people off. But most presenters, most trainee, most normal people, not professionals, but most normal people have this thing about presentations where they design them defensively.
Yes.
So, they have a mindset where they go, how can I stop things going wrong? And that is a bit like a football team playing how can we not lose? So you put all 11 players in your own goal line. Well, the best you can ever hope for at that point, even if you don't make any mistakes and concede a goal by dumb luck, the best you can hope for is a 0-0 draw, because you're never going to win. So the design tip here is to, instead of designing to avoid losing, instead of going, how can I minimize the risks, is to ask yourself this kind of blindingly obvious question: what do I want this presentation to change? And when you know what it is supposed to change by the end of your presentation, you design your presentation to do that. I know it sounds blindingly obvious.
So hang on a minute then. So when you say change, do you mean change the perspective of the people in the room, or make a change from more of a like a selfish point of view? Like, I want to change people into taking my lead magnet or going on my email list.
It depends what the presentation is. So the presentation I was working on this morning, for example, was with an accountant who was talking about the new rules for people getting laid off because of the COVID-19 virus. So his presentation, he said, was about the COVID-19 virus and what the government has got in place, yada, yada, yada. Complete waste of time. Because what the presentation should be about is what his punters, what his audience should do next. So you only explain the government regulations in order to get people to take action. So his definition of a successful presentation was the people went away at the end and signed up to the following kind of government website and stuff to know what they were supposed to be doing. So it depends on the presentation as to how you define success. It could be that your presentation is to get 9 people to come to your stand if you're at a conference. And out of that, you might get one conversion, that's $5 million worth of work. I kid you not, that happened to a client of mine a couple of years ago. It's awesome. The downside is that I was on a flat fee. I should have been.
Yeah, you should have had a cut.
Should have had a cut. But that was a big industry standard conference. So his definition of success was, I want to get people to come to my stand, and that's different from I want to get off the stage without looking like an idiot.
Massively different, yeah.
Massively different. So he was giving people 2/3 of the information that they thought they wanted. So to get the last third of the information, they had to come to his stand. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So tip 1 is design. Know what the win is and design for it rather than just design defensively. Step 2 is likewise embarrassingly simple, and it's to signpost. So you know that thing where you start a presentation and about halfway through you fall asleep and don't pay attention, and then right at the end the presenter goes, so to sum up, and then the entire audience go, you start to pay attention at that point. You know, you go, oh, right, okay, yeah. And that happens because let's say you're giving a one presentation that lasts 20 minutes, and if people lose you in minute 4, that's it, they're gone to the rest of the presentation. So a better technique is, instead of giving one 20-minute presentation, is to give 4 5-minute presentations. And at the end of each presentation, each mini presentation, you signpost the fact really heavily that you've gone, right, finish that, hit the reset button, start again with a different module. Think of them as chapters in a book. So whenever you change, an author, whenever they change location or time or the characters who are involved in the conversation, they clearly indicate that they're changing chapter. They have a blank page and then a title, so you know.
That's interesting. So it's almost like you would pause, take that, embrace the silence. I know that's an important thing of doing a good presentation, or even telling a joke, having the right timing, but take that pause and just explain to people, right, we're now moving on, in case they got lost.
Black slides are your friend at this point. Changing medium is your friend at this point. Even changing presenters, if you're doing a double-hander, is a good thing, with a couple of provisos. The first proviso is that the new presenter has to be different to you. So changing from one white middle-aged man to another white middle-aged man is not as effective as me handing over to Claire, because she's younger and she's female and has different styles.
Different tone of voice as well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But there's something I want to take up they not kind of take issue with. And you said tell a joke. Right, and here's the problem with telling jokes. The number of people who can tell jokes is a lot smaller than the number of people who think they can tell jokes.
That is so true. Now, so for the record, I was just referring to the art of telling a joke, and a lot of comedians, professional comedians, when you see them on the telly, talk about taking that pause and making the timing.
Yeah. Timing is everything. And as an aside here, this is not one of my 4 tips, but as an aside, we talk about using humour rather than telling jokes. So humour is something that grows out of the room. It's something you see that's happening in the room, and you can make a funny comment about that, but it grows out of what's going on. So you've seen me do it, actually. I teased you before Christmas. I was giving a list of things in the room that were not frightening.
Yes.
This isn't frightening. This isn't frightening. This isn't frightening. Laura's not frightening. And then I stopped halfway through the sentence, implying that you were actually frightening. It got a laugh out of the audience, got quite a nice laugh out of the audience. But that was something that grew out of the room. It wasn't set up. It's just I happened to look at the audience and saw you there and used it. So that's step 2. Number 3, equally obvious, rehearse the tech. Please, God.
Oh, yes, rehearse the tech. This is something that I know I've ballsed up on myself, where you think you've got it all down, and then you arrive at the room and the projector doesn't collaborate with your laptop. You're totally buggered.
Absolutely. So for God's sake, get there early enough to check the tech and all of that kind of jazz. And there's nothing worse. There's something called the Oppenheimer effect, which is people associate competence in one field with competence in another. They also likewise associate a lack of competence in one field with a lack of competence in the other. Now, you might be the best expert in the world at topic X, but if the first 5 minutes of your presentation are you going, does anybody know where the VGA cable plugs in?
Yes.
It's not supposed to look like, my clicker doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? You've lost all credibility.
Yeah, you've tanked. No one's opting in to anything. No one's even going to follow you on Instagram as a result of that.
Absolutely. And we all rehearse our presentations. We don't. We are supposed to rehearse our presentations, but I want to add on to that, don't just rehearse the presentation, rehearse the tech. So, for example, it's such a simple thing. Like, for example, before the audience gets in, obviously I flash through my slides, but I do it from the back of the room deliberately, A, to see how it looks on the screen, and B, so that I can be absolutely sure that my clicker, my remote control, will reach my laptop no matter where the hell I am in the room.
Oh, that's a clever tip.
Well, there's nothing worse than going, click, it's not working, click, it's not working, click, it's not working, and then walking towards the projector, and all of a sudden you're going, click, 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 as you walk towards the projector, and 9 slides go on because you've just gone, click, 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 click.
Yeah.
So it's not difficult, it's not rocket science, you just have a checklist and go, have I checked this, have I checked that? And some of the other things to check are things like where the zone is, where the cone of light is.
Yes.
So if you're unlucky enough to be working with a data projector, mark on the floor where you can't stand. Because you've got a shadow on the screen behind you. Just have a look at what's on the floor that tells you where not to stand.
Yeah, there is nothing worse, actually. Like, if you go to the more boutique events, there's nothing worse than the poor bugger doing the presentation, standing in front of the projector. You can't see what they're talking about behind them, and they look like ominous because they've got this light radiating up, haven't they?
It kind of goes. I can't remember. There you go.
Ah! I was waiting.
The other thing to check in the tech is where the squeaky floorboard is. And there's people out there going, what squeaky floorboard? And I have to say, every venue in the entire freaking world has a squeaky floorboard. If you haven't stood on it, that's because you've just not been moving. It's there, trust me. And the way to find it is to look at the stage and go, where would I most like to stand most of the time? That'll be where the floorboard is. That's it. To be there. So just little things like that. Just check them out beforehand.
That's really helpful.
The last one is quite a big one. It's called the curse of the expert. Right? Now, curse of the expert, it goes like this. The more you know about a topic, the harder it is to figure out what other people need to know. You can't sort out the wood from the trees. Okay, so I'm going to take a photography example because I'm talking to you. There's a slide I use very, very often where I put this photograph on the screen behind me, and if the photographer who took this was here and I said, talk to me about that slide, about that photograph, she would say, I had this camera with this lens, with this F setting, yada, 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 yada. But actually what I need to know is Simon, you are 10 meters from a wild tiger, because that's what's on the photograph.
Right, okay, yeah. It's easy to get wrapped up into the jargon, isn't it, when you're just speaking it all the time?
Absolutely. So, for example, you must have used a spreadsheet at some point in your life, yeah?
Yes, many.
Okay, right. So I'm also sticking my neck out and guessing that you've sorted columns of data using your spreadsheet.
Yes.
Yep, okay. Do you know the actual algorithm that Microsoft have coded into Excel to do that?
No, of course not.
And do you care?
Not a jot.
Right, so there's a little magic box, the little black box that's called sort algorithm. You put random data in, you get sorted data out, and as far as you're concerned, it could be nanomite-sized versions of Bill Gates and Steve Wozniak inside that little black box doing the sorting. You don't care. Because as an audience member, what you care about is what that black box does for you.
Yes.
That's great. But the expert in computer coding is going to talk about the contents of the little black box, because that's what's exciting to them. Nobody gives I nearly swore. Nobody gives a monkeys about what's inside this. Yeah. Nobody cares at all about what's inside the little black box, except the person who wrote the software inside the little black box. And that's what they talk about, but that's not what anybody else cares about. So the fourth tip then is beware the curse of the expert. Just strip everything away except what you could get. We talk here about the Twitter test. If you could get it in a tweet, if you can simplify it and get it in a tweet. And now I'm old school, so a tweet is 140 characters as far as I'm concerned. If you can get it in a tweet, you're golden. If you can't, then you need to strip away another layer to get down to the absolute nitty-gritty of it.
That's really helpful. I think in addition, with that tip though, so if I get asked to speak, more often than not, guess what? It's about photography or using your phone to take better pictures. But I like to make a point of asking the host, who are the people in the room? Like, what is the level of knowledge? Are these people really active on social media and doing selfies and phone photography all the time? Is there a mix? Or is everyone terrified of it and you already know? And that can really help how much pedaling back I do in the lead up to what it is. And sometimes it means taking away some extra tips.
Yep.
Because people just need that basic level of understanding. But I find when you're being asked to talk as an expert, you need to know who you're talking to.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm going to go even further than that. I'm going to refer back to tip one, which was designed to win. Remember that?
Yes.
It may be that your win is get this person to write that check. Could be something as simple as that. A successful presentation is this person buys that. So who is your presentation aimed at that point? Just the one
that one person,
right. Right. So what you need to do is actually, you're right, if it's a general purpose audience, how much do they know? But actually, sometimes it's easier than that, because in a general purpose audience, they've got, you'll have the experts up here who know as much as you do, and they'll have people like me down here who can just about remember to put the pointy end facing away from them. You think I'm kidding? But actually, it might not be that more complicated, because if you know what the person, the decision maker is, you pitch what you tell at that person. The level goes to them, not to the experts, not to the newbies, but it goes to. It's much easier than I've made it sound, because you only have to ever in a presentation pitch the level at the decision makers.
That makes really good sense. So I think I've probably overcompensated sometimes, and maybe I've made it too simple because I wanted to appeal to more of the people in the audience, when actually the one or the two people who were in that audience who would have made great customers maybe felt that I was being a bit too basic. Yep.
And it may be that if your design for a win is make everybody like me,
yeah,
then simplify. But if the thing is get Richard Branson to give me $5 million, then you pitch for Richard Branson. You don't pitch for three. The idea is simple. The execution is difficult, because it might mean that you hack off different members of your audience by pitching at the wrong level for them.
Yeah.
So it's a question just of knowing what you want out of your presentation.
Hi, Laura here, quickly interrupting this conversation with Simon. I want to ask you a quick question before we get back to the interview. Did you know that I give sneak preview access to every single episode of Mwah TV to a whole select group of viewers? That's right, as well as getting quick snap episodes before everyone else in the world, I make sure that these people have real input in the behind the scenes of my photography business. In addition to that, these people also get exclusive special offers throughout the year that you won't see anywhere else. You can join this international gang of beautifuls by signing up for a free subscription to Annals and Apertures. You can find out more by going to www.laurapearman.com/annals-and-apertures. Back to the conversation with you now, Simon.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So let's go into that thing where you were talking about practicing then. So I've come from a world where you practice as much as possible. So when I was a kid and I did dancing, you just run it and run it and run it until you can do it in your sleep. Same with playing the saxophone, practice the scales, and then you'll probably pick up the song or the tune a bit better. In your world and with professional speaking, is there such a thing as practicing too much?
I'd forgotten you were a saxophonist. Yeah, okay. So I'm a bit of a drummer, so we should get our act together at some point.
Yeah, we should jam.
Yeah, we should totally see if we can get enough money to pay for someone to buy us cocktails. That would be awesome.
Yes, that would be amazing.
But I will put money on the fact that in your dance days and in your saxophone days, I'll put money on the fact you didn't just run through the whole thing. I'll bet what you did was run through it once, find where the bits were that you couldn't play, and do those bits at half tempo, and then back over and over and over and over until you can't get them wrong. Then go to the next move or the next scale that you can't do and practice that over and over and over and over and over. And the bits where you're just tootling on a G flat, going,
yeah.
You don't need to waste time rehearsing those, for God's sake. Once you know a G flat is a G flat is a G flat, or an F sharp, depending upon which key you're in. But you get the idea.
Yeah.
You don't need to do anything that I've just. Because I'm talking to a saxophonist, I'm okay doing that. But do you know what? I reckon there's about 2/3 of the audience going, what's the difference between a G flat and an F sharp?
Yeah, you can tell us in the comments below.
There isn't one. There isn't a difference. There isn't one. It's just musicians being
geeks, talking, joking again. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you don't need to practice. You don't need to practice the bits that you can do. Which is why actors and musicians and dancers and stuff talk about the rehearsal process. Not rehearsing, but the rehearsal process, because within that process, there are little bits where you practice and there are bits where you just go, sorry, that'll do. And that means that when you come to actually make the presentation, you're confident because all the bits that could go wrong now won't, because you've practiced them till you can't get them wrong. And at the same time, it still feels fresh to your audience because the bits that were easy, you're actually doing for almost the first time. You've not got a chance to get stale because, I don't know, paragraph 13, you might never have said. Paragraph 14, you'll have said 3 times. Paragraph 32, you might have said once just to prove that you could do it.
So yeah, that's really helpful, Simon. Let's move on from practicing too much then. I'm really interested what you're going to say to the answer to this question. Who is your favorite professional speaker, but they have to be within the entrepreneurial space and they have to be a current speaker, and why have you picked them?
Yeah. Okay, there are very, very few.
Yeah, you are a real connoisseur, aren't you? We need to say this to people who don't know you yet, but Simon is a real connoisseur. And why are you a connoisseur like this?
Because most. Oh, please don't make me be
No,
rude.
you can say it. You can say it.
Because most people are crap. And because they talk about themselves instead of trying to give anything useful to the audience, and because they bore the pants off the audience by throwing bullet point stuff at the screen and by obsessing. So, for example, the number of entrepreneurs you see start off their presentations with something like, "Hello, my name's Dr. Simon Raybould. I'm an expert in this field, so I thought I would tell you something about how I got to become an expert in this field. I was born in October in 1960.
No. I'm reaching for the hip flask at that point. I'm not going to lie.
I'm back for the sniper rifle straight away.
Yeah.
Instead of going, what does the audience need? How do I best give it to them? So there's one, actually thinking about it now, there's one guy who does this really well. Actually, both you and I know, is a guy called Richard Tubb.
Yes, Richard's a client, yes.
Yeah, cool. Now, Richard used to be a geek. He used to run an MSP, a managed service provider for clients. So
I
basically,
think Richard would be the
Gerber
first
stuff.
to say that Richard is still a geek, and he's a proud geek.
He's moved on from geekdom into nerddom now. He's a
really?
nerd. Yeah, he's a nerd now. It's all about comic books and things now, which is different from. So Richard has a bit of a problem, one of which is his Brummie accent, but he's great on stage because he's one of those brilliant entrepreneurs who has almost no ego. And so what he does is just go, what does the audience need? How do I best give it to them? And he doesn't stand there and go, I used to be an MSP and I've done this and I've done that and I've done the other. He just lets his expertise speak for itself. So, for example, one of my daughters is an analogy, not an example, an analogy. One of my daughters is a doctor.
Yes.
She's an anaesthetist now in an ITU. So she's very, very front line in COVID-19, so we're really thinking quite hard about that. But when she starts with a patient, she doesn't walk up to the patient and go, "Oh, hello, my name is Dr. So and so and so and so. I graduated in medical school." Such and
you
such.
Don't care. Yeah.
She just has the scrubs and the stethoscope to get you kind of 90% of the way to thinking she's a doctor, and then she just lets her competence speak for itself. Now, there are still some people who go, "Oh, you've got mammary glands, therefore you're a nurse." But those people, you just have to kind of get around the fact that they're a bit, I was going to say behind the times, they're a bit last century, but one, really. But the most mature people, you don't say, "I graduated in medical school with a yada, yada, yada in 1980, whatever, 1990, such and such." You just go, "All right, I'm Dr. Raybould," and then you're on with the treatment.
And actually, when you think about it from a speaker point of view, if you've paid money to go to a conference, or even if you're going along to an event, you have already invested a certain amount of trust in the host selecting the right speakers for you. So that's equivalent, isn't it, almost?
Yep, absolutely. They have, like artists, have people who figure out where paintings are going to go in the gallery, that kind of stuff. Then somebody should have done the same thing for the conference. And all the stuff that the presenter wants to do with the "Hello, my name's Dr. Raybould, I was born in October 1962," all of that rubbish should have been in your bio. It should have been in the stuff that they have read before they go, "Do you know what? This guy or this girl or this whatever sounds interesting. I'm going to go along to their session."
Yes.
So you're right. They've made the investment before they get there. And you don't want, as a presenter, you don't want to waste the most attentive time they have got when they're fresh by telling them your freaking bio.
So I've never actually seen Richard speak, I don't think. I know obviously we've worked together, we've hung out a lot. What makes him so good in your eyes?
He's entertaining, but mainly it's to the content. He sits down and he thinks before the session starts, what does my audience need? How can I give it to them? And he gives it to them in the most efficient and entertaining way possible. There's almost no Richard in his gig. Now, that's not true. There's a lot of personality, but there is no ego.
Yeah, there's none of that time wasting and the ego stuff. There's nothing worse than the egocentric entrepreneur who's like, if you've ever seen the Tom Cruise when he's that motivational speaker in Magnolia, it's horrific, like greasy hair, the little Madonna microphone, just declaring random sentences and shouting at everyone, but people love it. It's not like that. You shouldn't be like trying to be like that as an entrepreneur.
But it's one of the things that freaks me out when people do that, because we talk a lot about the 3 levels of impact on your audience. The first level of impact is how you felt it went. Okay, so did I think I did a good job? The second level of impact is how did the audience in the room think it went? And the Tom Cruise stuff can actually get a good rating for that, because people are going, rah, 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 it's awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
But the third level of impact is what people do with the information you give them once they have left the room.
Yes, have they taken action?
That's it. That's where it should go. So the rah, 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 random motivational speaker stuff, it lasts for the room and about as long as it takes to have the coffee at the end of the session.
Yeah.
Whereas Richard's stuff, it's great in the room, but he gives you things that you can use afterwards, stuff that you can take away and apply afterwards.
Interesting. That's really helpful to get a gauge on it. So I ask all of my guest experts this same question, and I'm pretty confident about what you're going to say. What is the hottest trend topic right now in your industry, in professional speaking, and how do you personally feel about it?
It is such an easy and obvious way. COVID-19.
Yeah.
Because all sessions have been locked down. Anything and everything now has to be done virtually if it's being done at all. So there's two things happening in the industry, three things being done in the industry. The first is blind panic.
Yes, yeah, we've got that in the photography world. I can promise you that.
The second is, can we delay? And if so, by how long? And the third option is, can we go virtual? And if so, how? So COVID-19 is definitely the big topic at the moment, and there's a little bit of stuff that's driving around the bend where it's amazing how many people who've never used an online presentation in their life are suddenly quotes expert at it.
Don't even get me started. You know what I'm sick of seeing? The selfies of people who are in the traditional 9-to-5 full-time employed world talking about the funniness of being dressed professionally just on the top half and then still in your jammies, and I'm like, me and my entrepreneur friends have been doing that for donkey's years. Like, get with the program.
Do you know what? I used to do that even when I was in research.
Yeah.
We used to have a departmental shirt and tie because I was a research academic, and we all turned up in jeans and t-shirts and scruffs. And on one particular occasion, a minister came to visit us, which I'd completely forgotten about. And normally you put on a shirt and tie for a minister, but on this occasion, completely forgotten about this minister arriving. Went to the department secretary and said, so borrowed the departmental shirt and tie, and this guy must have thought I was the rudest person in the world because I didn't stand up to, I just went forward to shake his hand.
You just did one of these over the desk. You're right, mate.
Hello, nice to meet you. And that's because I was actually wearing cycling shorts underneath the desk.
You did him a favour.
I cycled into work and didn't dare stand up.
Yeah, it is. It's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, I think we collectively know a lot of people who do online only businesses. I've certainly got a lot of clients like that. But I think it's going to be really interesting, this period of change that we've got, where we've got the much more traditional industries understanding that it is actually quite easy to do a lot of stuff online, and actually, how is that going to impact us as a society as a whole? It's going to be interesting. But right now, I really relate to what you're saying. It's really annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, can be. It certainly can be, yeah. To be fair, it's something about being a speaker and presenter, and I guess you get this in the photography world as well. Anybody can make a brilliant one-off presentation, just like anybody can get lucky with their iPhone and take an astonishing photograph.
Yes.
The difference with being a professional is that you can do that 9 times out of 10, not 1 time out of 10.
Yeah, it's not about being fluky when you're a pro. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, the thing about being a pro is, my presentations are great, but there are people out there who are amateurs who are out there who are better on stage than I am. The difference is that most of the time they suck, and just occasionally they hit it, whereas I will
every single time.
Every time. Yeah.
Okay,
or I don't get paid.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. You don't get paid, or you lose even more business that was about to happen because you dropped in everyone's estimations. So, as you know, Simon, we've enjoyed a lot of cocktails together in person over the years. I love everything to do with cocktails. So, thinking about that, what are the 3 ingredients that you think are required to make a cocktail of success for professional speaking?
Right. By coincidence, I blogged about this a couple of weeks. Isn't that the world's most pretentious sentence? As it happens, I blogged about it. But I want you to imagine a Venn diagram. Okay, so there's a circle here called content. There's a circle here called structure and design, and there's a circle at the bottom called delivery.
Okay.
You put those 3 things together, and great presentations are when you've got the right content with the right design delivered in the right way. So those are the three things. The bit that gets me hacked off is that when people come to me and say, Simon, can you help me with my presentation? What they ask me for is, can you help me with making a cool looking presentation? And they just concentrate on the design. In fact,
you see, you can't have all style and no substance. People see through that straight away. Yeah. So just to be clear then, from, to move your Venn diagram into a cocktail, are these 3 equal measures, or is one stronger than the other?
Honestly, you can get away with mediocre delivery if your content is awesome.
Yes, I suppose people will give a bit more time because they really want the answer to the thing you're talking about.
Yeah. Awesome content, great structure and design you can get away with mediocre delivery. You can't get away with crap delivery, you can get away with mediocre delivery. Whereas if you've got mediocre content, even if you got away with it, it is just getting away with it. It is puff and nonsense and doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah. And how is this served? Is this a tall drink? Are we putting it in a martini glass with a sparkler?
With ice, just so it's a bit cool.
Oh, okay.
Understated.
Understated. Okay. I'll bear that in mind.
In real life, my favorite cocktails are White Russian, so it's just a quietly understated little drink.
Yeah, so we have White Russians on around the clock throughout like the Christmas week. That's our main go-to cocktail for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I think every year I kind of exhaust myself for the White Russians, and then I feel like I can't drink them the rest of the year.
Why do I not have Christmas at your place? That's
I'm
awesome.
telling you, a White Russian with a big bit of shortbread, it's just Christmas.
Okay, I'm sold. I'm staying at your place for Christmas. You're on.
Okay, so last question, and you're going to poke fun at me for saying this, so you can go right ahead and do that. This is based on us not being in the current climate that we're in, but who is the best person that you would want to be stuck in an elevator with? And if you were in that metaphorical elevator, would you go ahead and use your elevator pitch on them?
I wouldn't, because I'm allergic to marketing. I would completely forget. You are talking to a man who addressed an opening conference for what they called Institute of Sales and Marketing Management.
Okay.
Right? So that's the Institute of Sales Marketing Management. I did a presentation for them, and I did not even take business cards. I had nothing. I just went along and I gave them content and went, "Thank you very much, bye." And these guys are going, "Well, where's the pitch? Where's the sale? Where's the?"
Yeah.
So I just don't do sales and marketing. So I would forget. I'm sure I would forget to do my elevator pitch. In terms of pretending I did remember to do an elevator pitch. I've got a product at the moment which I'm hoping to get into shops rather than just sell online. So I guess probably a buyer for one of the big stationery companies. Yeah. Thinking about it, the stationery buyer for WH Smith, they would be the person, I think, probably.
Yeah. WH Smith, or maybe even Paper Chase would be a good shout as well. They do like the top-notch cool stuff. So let's go into that a bit more then. So people who don't know about your presentation cards, do you want to just give us a quick rundown about what they are and who they're for and how you use them?
Yeah. Okay, but that's a bit selfish of me. The real answer to your question is I probably want to be in the elevator with Michelle Obama. Let's face
it. If anybody's going to know the key people in these giant companies, it's going to be Michelle.
That's true, but that's not why I want to be. But I just kind of fun. Getting back to your question. Okay, so the stuff you're talking about for the Smith stuff, the presentation design pack, it's designed to replace me. Oh, it's a really silly, weird thing to say. Because let's face it, most presentations don't have to be standing ovation stuff. They just, in the real world, most presentations are in companies and they just have to be good enough. They have to do what they need to do. Okay? So you don't need time with me for that. There's a system for that. There are processes for getting presentations from rubbish to okay and from okay to good.
Yeah, I suppose if you were an entrepreneur and you don't do professional speaking as like one of your income streams, you could be thinking that, do you know what, I'm going to give this a good bash for the next 6 months, try and book 10 and, get better at it before I start pitching it as like somebody you hire me to be paid. And they haven't got the budget for you, have they? Right.
So if you're self-employed, for example, your definition of a presentation is going to be the 2.5 minutes or whatever it is at a network meeting. So no one's going to hire a professional trainer to just do that. So what I've done is, hang on, I've got one for you. Hang on. There you go. And it's me in a box. It's taken the last 15 years of my expertise and put them into a set of cards and books and a whole bunch of leaflets and workbooks and all kinds of awesome things. In the book, it is literally a physical product. If you follow the instructions on the cards in that product, your presentations will either go from rubbish to okay, or from okay to good. I can't pretend they will ever go from good to great, because that requires expert input. But if we are talking about just presentations that need to get the job done, then the PDP is great. I'm really proud of it. Really proud of it.
That sounds like a really helpful resource, actually. Where do we go to find out exactly what's in the box, and where do you go to buy it?
Well, in 18 months' time, you'll be able to go into W.H. Smith's, because I will have sold it to the...
That's right, Michelle will have hooked you up.
In the meantime, you have to buy it online. So if you go to design.presentationgenius.info, you can get it. I dislike the Presentation Genius label. It came to me from the publishers. So the last book I wrote,
yeah, that was your book, wasn't it? Yeah,
that's right. So they said, do you want to write a book called Presentation Genius? And I went, no, I want to write a book called How to Make Your Presentations Less Rubbish. That does not sell.
Yeah.
Presentation Genius is what they wanted to sell. This would have been the same content, but
from a branding point of view, it makes sense to do a sub brand of like an addition. You've got the Simon Raybould brand at the top, then the Presentation Genius, and then it makes sense that these two now match. So that is the right way to do it branding wise.
So it's design.presentationgenius.info.
Okay, great. I'll make sure that we put a link to that in the show notes for people if they want to go and take a look. That's been really helpful today, Simon. Thank you ever so much for joining us on the show.
You are very, 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 very welcome. And look at the tip that is my office.
We've all got shams of houses right now where it's just got a bit nuts, hasn't it?
You know what? I'm not ashamed of this. I had a virtual background turned on, and I turned it off because this is where work happens. Anybody else who's got this...
Experts sometimes work in chaos. That's the whole point of Mwah TV.
I would like to think it's not chaos. No, I'm lying. I'm looking at it now. It's chaos.
Okay, that's brilliant. And hopefully I'll be able to see you in person sometime soon, and we can get the cocktail equivalent of your cocktail of success.
That would be awesome. Take care of yourself, love.
Thanks, Simon. Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed learning about 4 tips for crafting great speeches and presentations with my guest, Simon Raybould, then you might enjoy this episode of Mwah TV. This is where I shot headshots with Simon in a very exclusive library vault a couple of years ago. You can head right here, right now, to see how that worked out. If you've enjoyed learning about 4 tips for crafting great speeches and presentations with my fantastic guest, Simon Raybould, then you're probably going to enjoy this episode of Mwah TV. This is a couple of years ago where Simon and I did a headshot session together, and I managed to get access to a very exclusive library vault. You can take a look at what happened on our shoot right here. I'll see you next time. Mwah.
Now, before you go anywhere, don't forget to subscribe. Mwah.